So, good morning. We're actually going to be looking at Learning Outcome 3 today. So, we've looked at Learning Outcome 1 and Learning Outcome 2 for the communication unit. So, we just looked at seeing how organizations will communicate in the first section. Then we looked at our own personal skills and how we should be interacting with people. And now we're going to be looking at Learning Outcome 3, which is be able to communicate information in writing. So are you able to see my screen clearly? Is everything okay in that respect?
Well, can you follow up the man?
Pardon? Right.
Yes.
Yeah, you can see it. Fantastic.
Yes.
So we're going to be looking at 4 different learning outcomes on here. 3.1 is explain the uses of different forms of written communication in a healthcare setting. 3.2 is communicate information using appropriate written styles and methods. Then the merit question is to use appropriate technology and supporting graphs, diagrams, and or artwork to support written communication. And then it is 3D1, evaluate examples of different forms of actual written communication in a health and healthcare setting. We just had a few new students join us now. So I've got Tosin. Good morning, Tosin.
Good morning.
Morning. And I've also got another viewer. Who else has just joined? May I have your name?
Julia.
Julia. Hi. Good morning, Julia.
Good morning.
So we've just actually started. I was just talking about we're going to be looking at Learning Outcome 3 and the different criteria that we're looking at on there.
Yeah.
So I'll make a start over here. So Learning Outcome 3, be able to communicate information in writing. So on the first couple of slides, we're just going to talk about communication in general. So we're going to look at written communication. Now, you know, within healthcare, written communication is very important. Now, there's 3 main reasons for this, is to make sure that you're getting the care and treatment and there's a continuity of the treatment being given. So no matter who's on, you're looking after a patient 24-hour days. So in the morning, I might be on duty and I might be administering medicine. After me, a Tosin might come on. After a Tosin, it might be Julia, then it might be Addy, or it might be Joe. So it'll be continuity of care. So if I'm not marking down the medication that I've given to the person, to the patient, then after me, the next person doesn't know what's going on. So it's very important that I write down what I'm doing and we can make sure that the continuity is followed. It's also, again, self-explanatory, is to make sure that you're making a record of all care that's been given. Because if there's ever an emergency and they can't get hold of you, how will anybody else know what's been done or what's happened? So it's very important that you do note it. And then again, it's to make sure you're doing accurate recording so that it can be used as evidence. So if there's ever a complaint from the patient or from any member of their family saying that they're not getting their treatment on time, they're not getting their medication on time, you've actually got a fail-safe that you can fall back on and say, actually, we have been doing this because we've been recording it accurately and on time. This is our evidence. There are principles that you should use when you're doing written communication. So make sure that you write as near as possible to the time you deliver your care. So if you're doing it now, if you've just given somebody some medication or you've done a treatment for them, make sure you spend a couple of seconds and write it down as soon as possible. Don't walk away, don't see another patient and then think, oh, I should have done this, because you forget what time it was exactly, you forget exactly what happened. So it's very important. Write simply and clearly. If you're doing a handwritten, make sure it's legible. Make sure it actually is able, somebody else is able to read it. And try not to put in any errors. So if you're doing it on the computer, same again. You're not worried about legibility on it because obviously it's typed, but you just want to make sure that it's error-free. Add your dates and times as accurately as possible. Don't put any personal opinions on it. The patient might have been difficult with you, or they might have refused to have something done. So don't write down patient was being extremely difficult and because they're just being silly today, or put down I think they're grumpy today because they've not had enough breakfast or something. So you can just write down patient was being difficult or patient was refusing medication. So keep it non-judgmental. Again, from your personal opinions, don't judge someone because it can look like you're personally abusing them or you're insulting them. And also patients will have access to these records. They'll end up seeing them and you don't want them to see something that is insulting or judgmental on there. So now we've looked at some of the principles of written communication and why we do it. We're just going to go on to 3.1. So 3.1 is explain the uses of different forms of written communication in a healthcare setting. Now, written communication is, like we're saying, is an extremely important part of you working within healthcare, within early year settings, within any type of settings where you have somebody that is vulnerable with you. Practitioners do get asked to write out a care plan, or you get asked to do a daily report about what care has been given. You're filling out a lot of forms. You're constantly doing some type of recording. So either it's something that you've written down and said, right, this is the time we did the medication, or this is the time we did the treatment, or this is when we're actually going to go and see the patient, what our care plan is. So you've got to make sure that you actually take the time and you follow the procedures, you follow the activities, everything that you're meant to do, that you're following these recording written communication as much as possible. Now, health services, they do need to make sure that you've got a good written record. So we've come over some points previously. So it's just like we said a little bit earlier, that you're doing 24 hours, 7-day-a-week care. You need to make sure that there's a continuity going on. You're recording the care that's been given to the patient, and also it's evidence. So if someone disputes you having given them a particular dose of medication, you can say, it has been done, this is the time I did it. Now, again, principles of communication. So we looked at the Royal College of Nursing actually suggests this. So we've already gone through this. So write simply and clearly, be legible, add dates, and don't give personal opinions. So as a healthcare professional, it's your responsibility that you're putting down anything that you're doing with a patient, you're putting it down, that you're making sure that it's confidential and that it's not being accessed by unauthorized people. So you need to make sure that you're writing everything down, and also that you're not just leaving records laying around, whatever. Now, when we think about writing skills, whether it's you're doing handwritten or if you're doing on the computer or on an iPad, regardless of that, you've got to make sure that you're following the following steps. So you've got to make sure the text is presented in a particular way. You don't want it to be all italic or any sort of fancy Calibri type of typefaces. You just want a basic typeface, maybe Arial, and have a nice font size so that everybody can be able to read it clearly. So you don't want it to be too large, like 18, and then you don't want it to be too tiny, like putting it on a 9. So you've got to make sure that how you're presenting your work, how you're making your notes is clear, it's easy to read, and it's got a layout that will look professional. Use the correct grammar and punctuation and spelling. This will actually put confidence in other people when they're looking at your work, when they're talking about you, or when they're seeing something that you've done. Because if you're there and you're rushing through your work, or you've got spelling mistakes, or you've got grammatical mistakes, they're going to think if they're making these mistakes, maybe they're not as good at the job. So unfortunately, judgments do happen. make sure that the style of writing that you use is appropriate. So you might want it to be formal. If it's an official report, make sure that it's a formal style of writing. If you're just making little notes for colleagues, informal is okay. But just make sure it's the right situation. And then the language that you use, you might want to use the current terminology, but you don't want to use jargon. So if you're going to use a terminology, spell it out incomplete. So spend the time doing a couple of seconds, type the whole thing out. This is extremely important because sometimes a certain jargon, certain abbreviations will actually get adapted, and they can mean a few things depending on what you're looking at. Then we have specialist communication, and I think we mentioned this very briefly yesterday. Just like specialist communication, where you're having lots of different interactions with different people. Lots of people have different needs, and you need to know how to speak to them. And as you're working with them continually, especially with the amount of people that you do come across, you will develop this, and it will be a lot easier for you to identify. Now, there are specialist communications that need to happen. So for somebody who may be sight impaired, they'll need to be looking at their records and things in Braille, so they can read Braille. So obviously the raised indentations on, when they have a piece of paper and there's little dots on them. You'll notice it on some letters sometimes, or some food tins. But these raised dots are what they do with their fingers. They'll touch them, and they'll actually be able to read through that. And then sign language again. You might need to have somebody come in who has British Sign Language or Makaton if they're from a different country. So you've got your Braille and you've got your sign language on here. So we just had somebody else join us now. May I take your name for the viewer that's just joined us?
Morning.
Morning. Ganiat. Good morning. Are you feeling better?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Ganiat, we just made a little start. We're just talking about communication and just written communication. So you've not missed too much. We're just going to go on to 3.2 next.
Okay.
So is everyone okay with what we've gone through so far? I'm imagining a thumbs up from all of you and big smile saying, yes, we're fantastic. So 3.2, communicate information using appropriate written styles and methods. So this one is actually quite simple, to be honest. All you need to do on this section is you need to add a couple of written communication in. So in your assignment, you'd add an example of a letter, maybe of a CV, so your own CV into it. You'd add an example of an email or a formal report or an informal report. So it's very simple. Sorry, if you've got background noise, would you mind muting yourself just so we've got a clear recording? Thank you. So like I was saying, this one's just completely simple. You just need to add a couple of examples in, add a letter, an email, a formal report, one of your CVs, a leaflet, but I'll go through this very clearly tomorrow when I actually tell you exactly what to do in your work. 3M1 is use appropriate technology and supporting graphs, diagrams, and or artwork to support written communication. Now, on this section, what you're going to do is you're going to look at different types of softwares and communications and things that actually you use. So when I set the assignment tomorrow, what you'll notice is that there'll be a part of it which will be a PowerPoint. That will actually support your responses for the merit question. Within that PowerPoint, you're going to have images, you're going to have graphs, you're going to have information in it, which is supporting written communication. So you'll have your answers on one side, and then you'll have something that will support it image-wise. So that will go part way in supporting this. When you look at this, you're also going to be adding in images or graphs of, say, for example, an MRI scan. You can just Google it, or you can go on, add a picture of an X-ray. And then all you're going to do on this is you're going to put the X-ray image in, or a graph in, or a table, or an image in, whatever you choose, and you're going to talk about it. You're going to say, this X-ray is taken because of this, this, and this. It shows that somebody has broken an ankle, and then you can say this information. This is a digital image where you're taking a picture of the bones and so on. Obviously, just explain what you've added in. So it's quite self-explanatory. It's quite simple. So learning outcome 3 is quite a nice, simple one to answer when you come into your assignment. And then 3D1. So all of this just flows off each other. Evaluate examples of different forms of active written communication found in healthcare settings. So you're just going to look at things like patient records, prescriptions, any letters, any emails, and you're just going to actually evaluate what they're like. You're going to tell me, why is this a good form of communication? Why is it a bad form of communication? Then you're going to decide, do you like this type of, do you like that people are getting emails instead of letters now? So is it more productive? Is it easier to, is it more accessible? So you're going to evaluate it, and you're going to just talk about what you think it is. Within this, you probably could evaluate images, say, for example, when you have all this signage around your settings, where you've got no entry or hazardous or no smoking, you could include an image of one of those in, of the signs in, and then talk about it. Say, this is a no smoking sign. It's very simple for everybody to understand, regardless of their language. You're going to write down, it shows a picture of a cigarette with smoke coming out of it. It's got a red circle around it with a line through it, indicating that this means this is not allowed. And then you can say the benefit of this is that everybody is able to understand. So again, you can have examples of record keeping. So you can take a snapshot or use something off the internet of an image of a patient record and explain it. So tell me exactly what's a record, what this record is for, why do you use it, and what the reason is for this to actually be here. And do you like it? Do you like the fact that there's record keeping here? What are the advantages to this? And are there any disadvantages? So you're just evaluating it. So when you're looking at it, this answer questions here, for example, if you're still going for record keeping or anything, to be honest, so prescriptions, your daily care plans, your any implementation of care plans that are happening, any records that you're doing, they're actually used within the workplace. You can do them as handwritten, or you can do them on computer-based, or you can have a bit of both. So you're just going to actually answer what the reason is for this. Is it beneficial? Is it not beneficial? And, you know, how good is it? So when we actually go on to this, and I will go into this a little bit more clearly on tomorrow when we're doing the assignment. This learning outcome 3 is quite a simple one that you can actually cover. So 3.1 and 3.2 are actually covered within one section. For this little section here, all you would need to do is add 3 different images or 3 different examples, sorry, of, so for example, if I wanted to answer this question myself, I would put an example of a leaflet. Maybe I'd go onto the internet and I'd search something about healthy weight. Sorry, there's a lot of background noise from someone. Could you please mute for a moment? Thank you. So I would just go on the internet. I would choose, say, an example of a leaflet. So maybe about healthy eating. I'd add that in. That's all I need to do. then I would put down, write up a, for example, if I'm sending an email to someone and letting them know the test results. And that's it. You're formulating an email, you're writing it out, and that's another example of a formal email. Another thing I might do is actually add a copy of my own CV in and say, this is also another example of a document that's used within healthcare, because when you're applying for a new job for healthcare, you're obviously using a CV. So these 3 documents will cover 3.1 and 3.2. When you're looking at 3M1, your PowerPoint for Learning Outcome 1 will support this partly, but then you're just going to add in a couple of images or a graph. And then you're just going to talk about them. You're going to say, this is what this image is showing here, and just explain exactly what you can see within that image. For 3D1, you're just going to look at different forms of written communication. So look at records that are done, prescriptions and letters, and then have a screenshot of each one of those in, or provide an example of those in, copy and paste it in, and then just tell me exactly what this is showing you. What have you added in? Explain it very clearly. We also have on here, let me just scroll back. Has anybody got any questions while I'm just getting back into the section I need to? Relogging back in.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I am on my module page. I can't go in there. I don't know. I don't have access. I don't know why.
Who is this I'm speaking to?
Ghanaian.
Daniel, you've not got access to it now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. What I'll do is I'll try and get that sorted out for you.
Okay.
No worries. So when you go into your Moodle page, just scroll down to the section where it says Learning Outcome 3. So we've got a previous recording from me on here. We've got Learning Outcome 3, which is the PowerPoint that I've just been going through. And then we've got this here, 3D1 Communication in Healthcare. It's just a little document. It's a big document, but it just tells you about different types of communication that can take place in healthcare. It's, if you've got a moment to read through this, you can do. Here's a copy of some records, so you can copy, snip this and add it in, and just say, what does this actually show? They've got some graphs on here. So all you're doing is, it just gives you a load of different examples on here, and you're just evaluating what they are. I'm going to turn the recording off.